I have an amazing guest for you. An0maly is here. And he's been here several times on the Fallen State, on the radio show. Haven't spoken to him for a while, so I just want to catch up. An0maly is a news analyst and hip hop artist. An0maly, welcome to the show, man.
How are you?
All is well. Where you been?
Life is good. I've been all over.
How's everything going?
Everything's great. Can't complain.
Yeah, amazing, man. Have you made any new music?
I have, yeah. I released a song a couple months ago. It's called Way Too Jacked for the Gulag. And I've been working out more, getting healthier. And I tried to make an anthem for people who are like, when Trump lost, they're like, oh my God, they're going to come for us. We're going to the Gulag. I said, it's time to get way too jacked for the Gulag. So it's like a workout anthem to escape the communists.
How can people get it?
It's everywhere. Spotify, YouTube. You just search Way Too Jacked for the Gulag. Like you're way too jacked for the Gulag. If they came to your studio and said, Jesse, it's time to go to the Gulag, you know, you'd flex on them and your whole staff would be prepared for that. So.
Oh yeah, they're going down if they come here. So how do you see what's happening in America today? How do you see things?
Definitely, I think my passion over the last year has been talking about the lockdown stuff, because I think that was something that majorly changed our country. Obviously, you had the left, the Marxist type ideology that's been pushing into our culture. And then I think they went full human slavery, where they just locked people in their houses. You know, they didn't want to let gyms open, restaurants open, and they treated people like prisoners. So, you know, I've been focused on that. And I think the future is being able to debunk that, or because they have all sorts of tricks with climate lockdowns, variants, you know, to use that as an excuse to do what they've always wanted to do to people, which is, you know, control them.
Yeah. What do you think of this so-called critical race theory?
Yeah, I think they just really hate white people. And I think they're exploiting Black activism to really push a political agenda that's way deeper than that. So I think at the core of it, you know, people say critical race theory and they're pumping it into the schools. I think that they really understand that demographically, you know, the white Christian base is the one who votes conservative and votes for smaller government. So they act like it's this big thing. They really love Black people, but you see, they don't talk about 99% of, you know, Black people who are dying too early. And then they're using it, I really think, to win elections. And you can find videos of them bragging about that. And then if you say it, they call you a racist, but I don't think it really has to do for love of Black people or really genuine hate, but more just like a thirst for power. And they understand, you know, demographically and racially who doesn't vote for them.
Yeah. What happened to your hand?
I fractured it boxing. I hit someone's elbow and my thumb's fractured.
Oh, nice. Real men box. That's cool.
Yeah. So betas beware. Just can I get a beta real quick? Not to me, but just to the world.
Beta.
I appreciate it. It's like a coffee in the morning. It wakes me up. Thank you.
That's right. So let me ask, are you surprised that under this so-called critical race theory thing that they're outright without shame discriminated against white people by calling them racist, hateful, whatever, right? And the white people are not standing up for themselves. They're allowing their children to be brainwashed with this stuff. They're allowing the Blacks to take their jobs and all kinds of things. They are putting these Black people in position of power without earning it. Are you surprised that the whites are afraid to, in their own country, because if it wasn't for white people, there would be no America. They founded and created the greatest country on this side of heaven. Are you surprised that they're just laying down and letting people intimidate them and destroy their country?
I think it is surprising. And there's an old saying, they say, strong men create good times. Yep. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. I think we had good times post-World War II, and it created weak men. And now we're having hard times. I think it is surprising. And you know, the right wing and the Christians and the conservative base, they always say, don't play the victim, don't play the victim. And that goes for us too. So it isn't their fault or their fault or their fault. It's our fault for being so weak and allowing it. So I think it's true. I think everybody's afraid. Everybody knows it's wrong, but they don't want to seem a certain way. So the response is they're losing, you know, they're losing everything, the country, the culture, the, you know, their states, their cities. And It is surprising. And I think the pandemic really exposed that, because when I started kind of going against it, it wasn't just liberals who got upset. It was a lot of conservatives who it's like they don't like to see somebody actually doing something. I say that the Republicans, they like to lose in slow motion wearing a cowboy hat. So it's like they become Democrats, but they just wear a cowboy hat and do it slightly slower. So it's surprising. And it's not just liberals. I think there's a lot of like fake tough guys who they'd rather just make excuses for why it's happening and play this game instead of taking a direct stance. And you've always done that. And, you just say what you think. And that's kind of a lost art.
Why? I mean, the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party. It is the Democratic Party. I believe we only have a one-party system now. And the right-o Republicans and others, they are not standing for the people. They are not for the people. They're for themselves. I believe they agree with the Democrats, and that's why they don't stop them. And I just think that we don't have a two-party system. The right-os are worse or as bad as the Democrats. They're just pretending. Even when I see them on different talk shows now, pretending to be upset with the Democrat is all lies. I don't believe them.
I agree. I think it's an act. One thing that stood out to me was when Tim Scott did his counter speech, right? Tim Scott, and the right said, "Oh my God, you're racist if you call him an uncle, you know what?" And that was the big narrative. And I listened to the speech, and the first thing I thought was during his speech, he said, Nancy Pelosi, they're trying to print trillions of dollars. When we did it, it was a bipartisan thing. So he was bragging about printing trillions of dollars in bipartisan fashion. And I'm like, that's not conservative at all. But people get caught in the whole left versus right narrative. I agree with you. The Republican Party is too weak, too left. And in 2020, they easily gave up the country. They easily locked down. They printed the money. They did all this crazy stuff. And that now we're supposed to believe they're going to fight the radical Marxists when they're becoming it. And just like you said, they put on a good act and a lot of people buy it.
Tim Scott is a right-o. I mean, he's one of the worst. And I think he's up for election. I wish that we had a real true conservative running against him so that they can vote him out and put in somebody that's going to stand for America, stand for what is right, and not be afraid. And Tim Scott is a true right-o, man. I just wish they could get him out of there. As they should with the other right-os. We need to vote these folks out and vote in people that would stand. These right-os, Republicans don't believe that that they can be voted out or will be voted out. That's why they continue to do what they're doing.
And I think a lot of people buy into the left versus right fight a lot, but you see with someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm not saying she's perfect, but she'll take a stance. And when she does, they condemn her. They say, "Oh my God, we got to take her out of this position." And it's like she's not the problem. If anything, there needs to be more of her that go further because, she's one person who doesn't just follow the norm sometimes. And instead of embracing that and saying, "Hey, that's refreshing," they say, "How do we take her away from her role so everybody just pretends like they're doing something?" So, yeah, I think, the pros and cons of Trump, the pros are a lot of people got inspired. There was more fight. And the cons, I feel like in the last year or two, people have kind of gotten lazy and, they're used to someone else doing something for them. And I don't think they're ready to admit that we made a lot of progress. I think we lost a lot in 2020, and there's a lot left to be desired in the Republican Party, a lot more to do.
Yeah, the right-os are ridiculous, man. I remember when they went against Representative Steve King when he tried to stand up and tell the truth. And the right-os went against the man. The Democrats don't do that to one another. You rarely hear it, even if you hear it at all. And this guy, Representative Steve King, was from a Republican from Iowa. And he tried to stand up. They voted against him. They voted him out. It's crazy. I want to ask, in South Africa, Mommy Africa,
Yeah, I like that.
The blacks took over in Mommy Africa, right? And as a result of that, they are robbing and killing and stealing white people. They got rid of the police department, so they're killing the white people along the roadside. They're raping them. Now they're taking their land without compensation. I see that, and I've been trying to warn the white folks that South Africa is coming to America. And you can disagree with me on this. It won't change our friendship at all. I see South Africa in America now. They have put all these radical blacks in our government, police departments, mayors, and things like that. And they're starting to vote in reparations. And eventually they will go for the white man's land. Am I wrong about that, you think?
No, I actually completely agree. And I think it's happening quicker than people think. So, right now the minority, conversation is, okay, if you're a minority, you're going to get this, this, and this.
Yeah.
When white people are the minority in America, they're not going to give you things. They're not going to give you free handouts. They're just going to, go even harder. So I think that's totally, totally true. And it's unfortunate it has to be that way. And I think about it like with a building, where this goes for everything, not just the race thing going on. But if there's a building you don't like, I think in order to knock it down, you need to make sure you have a better one. And I think everybody looks in America like it's so bad, it's so bad, it's so bad. We could have been better in some ways, but also the Constitution, and there's certain legislation that provides more human freedom than ever before. So these people want to really tear down what we have with no solution for how to make it better. And that's pretty much just the movement of like, defund the police. It's like that. You're not even getting to the core of most crime. They act like there's all this white supremacy crime, but if you look at the crime statistics in these big cities, the racial narrative is actually kind of reverse, and the biggest victim of them is Black Americans. So it's clear that they, one, don't care about Black people, two, don't care about safety, and everything they do is make it worse. So I know what you said maybe a few years ago, people would have thought was crazy and edgy, but I think it's totally obvious that as soon as white people become the minority, that they're not going to give you things and treat you like a victim. They're going to probably just treat you worse than they are now. And
I've noticed that they talked about defunding the police with this radical, far left radical group, Black Lives Matter, that was founded by a bunch of fat, black, radical lesbians.
Yeah, fact check. True. I mean, yeah, true.
And now they are defunding the police departments around the country, and black on black crime, black on white crime, now black on Asian crime is going out of control. And the media won't say anything about it. The white people won't say anything out loud about it. And when the media report, especially with the black on Asian crime, when they report it, they say it's white supremacists. And they're showing the story, the attack, and you're looking at the attacks, and it's black people, but they're saying it's white people. Like, you can't believe, you can't see with your own eyes that it's black people.
I saw a thread from a liberal on Twitter, and she was like shocked, and she was like trying to figure out, she's like, I can't understand why so many of these attackers are black. And it was like, she's like, I went to Georgia, I did race training. It was her trying to cope with the fact that the race wasn't what she thought it was. And I've been telling people, because I think the Republicans fall into this trap of just calling everybody racist and trying to play the same game as the left. Where I've been saying, where the attacks on Jewish people in Beverly Hills and the attacks on Asian people, it doesn't really have to do with anti-Semitism or racism. It has to do with high crime areas just being high crime. And areas that used to be safe, like Beverly Hills and like probably parts of San Francisco, New York, they're just not as safe anymore because crime rose. So it's not this like conspiracy against Asians. It's Asian people in these high crime areas are now targets because people are out of control. And it's only going to get worse, because with the Black Lives Matter riots, they sent out a bat signal to criminals, to violent, offenders, like, hey, this is actually activism. If you break things and you steal things and you hit people, we'll act like you're the good guy. So I think, and they make it easier with legislation to steal and, bail them out of jail. So I think that, combined with the pandemic, combined with just the rise in, demographics and ideology, it's just, it's only going to get worse. It has nothing to do with racism. It's just crime.
Yeah. It's common knowledge in the black community and Asian communities that the Asians have been under attack for a long time by the blacks, because when they first come to this country, they tend to set up shop in the black communities, stores and businesses and things like that. And they have to fight off the blacks, because the blacks go into the business, they rob, they steal it, they kill, and the Asians been fighting that for years. So it's common knowledge that they are doing it. And now they're brought in Los Angeles, they brought in this guy by the name of George Gascon or something like that. And he is endorsing Black Lives Matter. He's letting the black criminals out of prisons and jails. and it's just gonna only get worse. Even the rhino Republicans endorse Black Lives Matter and others, and it's just making things worse.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy.
You're right about that. If anybody's ever been to the hood or, you know, whatever you want to call it, just like areas where it's not as safe, like whether it's Asians or a lot of times like Indian immigrants own the stores and stuff, like it's like a war zone. I mean, I've been to certain parts of Brooklyn where I've watched the Indian store owner just get threatened, you know, like they have to deal with that every day. So it's only a shocker to people in $5,000 apartments in San Francisco. If you've ever been to the hood, the store owners, you know, who own it have to put up with a lot of crap, but they also make a lot of money and they're tough. I mean, you know, I couldn't do it for a week, but they do it because they're making the money, and then they, you know, go on vacation and enjoy themselves. But yeah, the Republicans are weak. Like I said, they lose in slow motion, but they wear a cowboy hat. So conservative thinks they're saving something, where it's like, and then people, I say this and they say to me, Jesse, what, did you vote for Joe Biden? If I question, you know, the Republicans or even Trump, and I'm like, no, I think they're not going far enough, because it's like they're losing. And it's not just liberal cities. They say, well, it's just the liberal cities. It also leaks into conservative areas. I know people that are in red areas that, because when the liberal cities get worse, it gets worse everywhere. And they look at the suburbs and they look at that places and it's open season, because they're like, that's where the money is, you know, and nobody's strong enough to really put their foot down. Everyone's afraid of seeming racist. Everyone's afraid of doing something. But it's like, I think the country is going to keep sliding until a real leader or real leaders in real communities just put their foot down and say, this is not a big conspiracy. It's just like zero crime policy, zero violent crime policy, and we're not going to beat around the bush, you know, keep people safe.
Yep. What's your impression of men today?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think weaker by design. You know, I think that I think men probably back in the day, they used to be stronger and tougher. And now, you know, I think people are weaker. And definitely you see with the liberals, to start there, where it's like, it's kind of their culture. You know, they're like toxic masculinity, don't do this, don't do this. So they've just become doormats. And, you know, I would say to any liberals who watch, because believe it or not, I think a lot watch you because you're like their father that yells at them that they don't want to hear, but secretly they do want to hear. I've met somebody that was liberal and he's like, you know who I love to hate? He said, Jesse Lee, I can't stop watching him. I'm like, because he's like your father that's telling you no, and you know he's right, but you don't want to admit it. You know, it's like they're not making you weak to protect people. They're making you weak because a weak male population is easy to conquer and control. And then even on the right, the lockdown really exposed it to me, because certain things, I didn't care if it was Trump, Biden, Abbott, whoever. And I'm like, this is wrong. And if you don't put your foot down, it doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden, they're going to keep doing it because you're weak. And people got so mad because it's like they, you know, with Trump, for some people, he inspired them. For others, I think people were trying to be cowardly and hide behind him and think, oh, he's going to save all my problems. But it's like, no, he's supposed to lead, you know, where it's like, you're also supposed to do something in your community. So I feel like even on both sides, people are so afraid to stand up. And tell me if you think this is good. I said it one time and it kind of stuck, where people are so afraid to do the right thing and they're comfortable doing the wrong thing. And that's spiraling our country, where it's like, they say to me, aren't you afraid of doing this? And I always say, I'm afraid when I do the wrong thing. And you guys keep trying to scare me when I'm doing the right thing. Like, why are you saying that? I'm like, you should be afraid for knowing that what you're doing is wrong and doing it out of comfortability. And when that happens, when people are more afraid to do the wrong thing than the right thing, this country could shift overnight. But even on the right, I think there's a lot of, you know, fake tough guys and just like, oh my God, I wouldn't say that, but I know it's true. Well, then
you're absolutely right, man. Absolutely. As you know, I grew up in Alabama on a plantation under the Jim Crow laws. I never, if a male or was a weak male, he was called a sissy. Men didn't put up with that. Women didn't put up with that. They would call it what it was. What it is, any man that has fear is weak. It's not normal for a man to have fear. Any man that has fear is a woman. He's a female, and he needs to overcome his mama. But and nowadays, I just never seen so many weak men of all colors, really, but of all races. I've never seen so many weak men in my whole born days. It's horrible. That there's an order to life of God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. And that order has reversed itself, been reversed, right? And now the woman is over the men, and the men act like little beta males. They're getting involved with married women, older women, women with children. They're afraid to speak up. Women are beating them up in the public, at home, and everywhere else. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know if you see it on your page, but if you say something brutally honest that's raw, a lot of people don't come in the comments and say, oh my God, thank you so much. I start seeing, oh my God, fear for this man's life. This man's in trouble, where it's like they're not only scared to tell the truth themselves, but they try to scare other people. Like that's become the status quo in the truther movement. Like, oh, this guy's going to die if he says that. And I'm like, this is such a weak mentality where it's like, you're going to die eventually. And if you're a coward your whole life, like, what are you going to accomplish? If Muhammad Ali was afraid of a brain aneurysm, he never would have boxed. If a football player is afraid of injury, like you can't do anything great in this world if you're afraid. So for some reason, not just on the left, but on the right, the status quo is like, I'm so comfortable doing what I know is wrong for money or stature or fame. And when you say the right thing, I'm going to try to scare you because I'm scared. I'm like, not only are you not going to scare me, but I want to let people know that that's, you know, like, oh, Hillary's going to come for you. Like, it's not just a joke. It's somewhat funny, but really what it is saying, I'm afraid. Yes. I'm afraid to say the truth. You should be afraid to say it. And I'm like, you guys got to stop this stuff because it's not that bad to say something, especially in America. In other countries, you know, they take you away instantly if you disagree with the government. We have the First Amendment. It's screwed up, but like if you don't appreciate it and use it, you're going to lose it all. So there is no reward for a coward. There is no like end, you know, thing that you're going to get like a prize. Like you're just going to screw yourself over, ruin your life. And eventually there, you know, you're going to run out of room to be afraid in.
I'd rather die standing in my booth than to live as a coward. It's a horrible way to live. I got to ask you about your tweet. My producer gave this to me. If Bush, first of all, I want to know, did you tweet it out? Because I didn't see it personally, right? It says that if Bush, Clinton, Obama, or Rubio did what Trump did in 2020, no conservative would give them a pass. What did you mean by that?
With the lockdown, with the 15 days to slow the spread, with the extension of the lockdown and the Operation Warp Speed vaccine program, I really think that, you know, in a way, obviously Trump was obviously incredible in so many ways, and you know that, but he almost provided this complacency where if George Bush were to say, hey, let's lock the country down, or Obama or Hillary or Rubio, no conservative would have fell for it. And I think with Trump, everybody loved him so much that people forgot to just stand in their own 2 feet and say, hey, I voted for you, but I don't agree with it. I know somebody, his name is Tony. He runs a place in Huntington Beach called Basilicos, and he didn't shut down for a single day. Not a single day, not a single hour. He stayed open. And one thing he said to me, although obviously he's very conservative, he said, I'm so tired of these Trump flags. I want to see an American flag being flown, because he's like, you know, people, instead of like doing their own thing, they just followed him. And all year during the lockdown, instead of doing it's not all about me, but I'm like, I don't care who's here. I don't agree with this. And here's why. People were making excuses for Trump. And I just know those same people, if it were Biden or Obama, they wouldn't have spent hours making excuses. They spent more time making excuses for lockdowns and warp speed vaccines than they did being a man in their own community and being like, you know, kids are being abused with these masks. And I don't agree with, you know, you ruining my local restaurant. So I find like conservatives started idolizing Trump almost like a god, where I clearly liked him a lot, but it got to this unhealthy point where questioning him was like questioning Christ, and people would rather make excuses for wicked things than like actually just say no. And I think that's where we lost the country, or, you know, and it's never been the same since then.
I remember when the Great White Hope, I call him the Great White Hope, right? And
I know.
We are going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
That's like a literal idol.
I remember when he first announced that he was running. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I said to the people back then, this man is amazing. He's what we need, but leave that little space there between you and the man, right? Because there will be some things that he's going to say and do that you won't agree with. And you should be able to disagree without turning on the man. But if you don't have that little space there, it would be difficult to disagree. Or if anyone else disagrees, you're going to get mad at them for disagreeing. So even though I love the president, the Great White Hope, Donald Trump, I always have a little space there because I know he's going to do something or say something that I don't agree with. and I'm able to speak up about it, but it doesn't change my support for him.
And I think that happened last year. And to me, it has become a religion where you're talking to somebody who really, really liked him. I keep hearing these theories like it's like he's secretly the president. He's going to come back. He's going to return. He's going to return. And I'm thinking Christ is going to return or Trump's going to return. Like they've replaced Christ with Trump. And I don't think it comes from a place of strength and loving Trump. I think these people are so afraid to actually do something themselves. Yeah. And they were just hiding behind Trump being like, he's going to save me. And the second that all of their theories didn't come true in 2020, it doesn't mean you have to hate them. It doesn't mean you have to throw them aside, but you're actually supposed to contribute. Trump can only do so much. And in your community, if every conservative man was a real man, the lockdowns would have ended after a couple of days if even that. But because Trump was there putting on a show, I think so many people got so comfortable being like, I don't want to be strong. I don't want to stand out. I want to hide behind him and just push him forward. And the second he went a different direction than they wanted to go, instead of saying, like you said, I don't agree and I'm going to do my own thing, people went his way and then just started getting mad at me for being like, because I took a very hardline stance. I have all these videos about the testing, about, the whole thing, the PCR test. I have the book somewhere around here. Kerry Mullis invented the PCR test. He said that they were not made to be used how they're being used, and no one's talking about it. DeSantis, Trump, I don't hate them, but I have my own platform, my own mind. I don't just, so there's a lot of followers and I get that. But, I think you say it a lot too, where it's like, I say, if you're going to follow anyone, follow Christ. And if you put a man above him, you're going to, it's called idolatry. And I think that's kind of happened because Trump did so much for people. They've kind of, replaced Christ with him, and it's become a little, annoying. So that's what I meant by the tweet.
Kyle was always putting someone else before them because they are afraid to stand up for themselves, and they're trying to get someone else to do it. What are your thoughts on 2024? I know it's far away, and I don't like to do that, but
no,
people want to know. Can you hold on for a minute?
Yeah.
Let me take a short break. I'm at the bottom of this hour. I'll come back and we'll finish up on this. Let me ask, have you ever considered running? Because we need conservative, real, true conservative men in our government, in our police department, men who are not afraid. Have you ever considered running for anything?
Yeah, I think I might be interested like later in life, but I know in order to get people's votes, they control people's minds and they control the media. So I really didn't like what the media was doing. And I think that's like a root level thing. So I'm in the media, culture, even children's books. I'm more interested in poetry and stuff, doing stuff like that. So politics maybe later, but I would have to get a legal degree, like and study law, because I know a lot of it is just legal jargon and stuff. I wouldn't just run a campaign and try to run. I would run to win. So maybe later, but I'm more interested in, I think, the media. If you can control what people are thinking, you can control what they buy, what they sell. And, I know you talk to the Black community a lot from your perspective, where it's like they've kind of, had a monopoly on the thought process, and that has then, gone downstream to what they vote for. So that's kind of my angle right now.
Amazing. I'm glad to have you on today, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Right now, do you see anyone in the conservative movement, even though it's not really strong, that can run for president that you would, as of today, tomorrow will take care of itself, but today, do you see anyone that you would vote for?
Yeah, I think I've learned my lesson.
As president.
I've learned my lesson to just go full in on anybody. So I'm very skeptical of a few people, but I think the clear front runner in the Republican Party is DeSantis at this point because of his stance against the medical stuff. So I think he seems like a strong leader. Me personally, I like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie better, but I don't know if they have what it takes to win. As much as I liked what Trump did, I really don't trust him anymore after the lockdown because, he did the 15 days to slow the spread. He said he was going to open, he extended it. And then the whole Operation Warp Speed vaccine program, it's not just that he did it, but he's making it such a priority. Like he's bragged about it in his emails 30 times now. And he doesn't seem to really care about kids who are being forced vaccinated at their schools. Like I get emails every day saying, An0maly, I can't go to school unless I get this. And, Trump's one of the reasons it's there. He seems to not even care. So I really don't trust him anymore. I think DeSantis is a front runner, but one thing with him that I'm a little skeptical on, although he's done a good job under the lockdown, is he passes these speech bills, and same with Trump. You know, they pass these anti-Semitism bills for Israel, and I just don't agree with them from a First Amendment perspective. I think the First Amendment's pretty clear, and anytime, regardless of which race it is, if you put a hate speech law, it just blurs the line of, you know, what you can and can't say, and I'm a little suspicious of that. But besides that, I think, yeah, he's a front runner for his pro-freedom, you know, moves the last year.
Is the Great White Hope, is he in support of forced vaccination?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know that he said he's in support of forced vaccination, but it's very clear it's being forced on cruise lines. It's very clear it's being forced in schools. Forced,
yeah.
But he doesn't say, he's the leader. So it's like he said 20, 30, 40 times, I brought it, I rushed it, not Fauci, it's me. I brought it here. I'm the reason it's here. So it's here and it's being used against us. And he doesn't talk about it. So it's not that he says it, but you know, his word doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. I mean, he said he would fight big tech. He didn't. Now he sends out an email. I shouldn't have brought Mark Zuckerberg to the White House. Perhaps I should have done something about it. Like, to me, I hate to be rude, but he just starts to seem like a circus clown to me. Like, he puts a carrot in front of your face and he's like, maybe I'm going to run. Maybe I'm going to do it. But it's like, you had 4 years, and I watched some of my peers get deleted off of YouTube, people that helped you win the election, and the GOP sat on their hands for a while. And that's why, real quick, with the election, everyone's running in circles around that. But it's like it really was lost earlier than that with Facebook and Google. They hate the president. They don't want him to win. They have rigged their websites so hard for so long. And I feel like the GOP and Trump, they didn't care until it affected them, which is a flaw because, you know, they're a product of who votes for them. Like Alex Jones. A lot of people might like him. A lot of people won't. His YouTube channel had 1 billion views. Trump went on his YouTube channel. So, you know, someone like that helped him win the 2016 election. He got wiped out in 2018. That's when Republicans controlled the Senate and the House and the presidency, and they sat on their hands. So I think, you know, that's the type of stuff where it's like he says he doesn't agree with it, but to me, his leadership, something changed last year, and someone told him that, you know, the Operation Warp Speed is his #1 accomplishment. And to me, it's the worst thing he's ever done. So as a voter, as a citizen, his whole shtick right now doesn't appeal to me. I hope he goes back to 2016 Trump, because that was much more appetizing for me personally.
Amazing. How can people hear your show, man?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Dream Rare. So you can find it on Instagram, DREAMRARE, Dream Rare, all one word. I have a YouTube channel as well, An0maly, and it's spelled An0maly. So the word anomaly, but the O is a 0, An0maly. That's it. I tweet too much. You know, that's why you read my tweet. Some say they like my tweets. Some say I tweet too much, but I think I'm better on the video. So I would follow me on other things, because the text-based stuff, you know, sometimes you're just popping off text. But yeah, I do live streams all the time on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Well, I have much respect for you for standing up and speaking what you believe, knowing that there will be people, especially on the Trump supporters, will be coming after you, but you have the love to express what you see is right. And that's what this country was built on. We must return to that.
Absolutely. And someone like you, Jesse, I would vote for you 1,000,000 times before I voted for any of these GOP people, even Trump, where he definitely did a lot. And I appreciate what he did for the culture, what he did to push these narratives at the forefront. But I think your type of mentality where you simply don't care, you don't get emotional about it, it's a lost art and it's sad. So I would vote for someone like you 1,000 times over every Republican, because they think pandering to the left is going to get them votes. But really what they need to do is just tell the truth, and that will translate into Spanish. You don't need to do a special little thing for the Hispanics. Like, just keep it real, keep it raw. I think that's why they like Trump, not for his little plans he did. It's just because he said what real people say, and that translates in every language.
Yep. Absolutely. I totally agree with that, man. I saw where this empty shell went over to Guatemala somewhere? Guatemala. You know that woman, Camilla Harris?
Yeah.
She went over to Guatemala, right? And people were over there protesting, telling her to go back home. We don't want you here. Trump won, you lost. And the media didn't show that. And I make that point because you're right. It doesn't matter what race, what color, male or female. If you tell the truth and not afraid to tell the truth, truckloads of people are going to be attracted to that. They want that.
Absolutely. And it's the same dynamics going on everywhere. I talk to people in Nigeria. there's different races, different religions, different demographics everywhere, but this same battle of good and evil, right and wrong, strong and weak, left and right, it's happening everywhere. People who are so beta that they're losing everything. So yeah, there's a huge population, billions of people that are desperate for somebody honest. And that's really what rose Trump to that ranks. And I think what really hurt him was the fact that he tried to play middle ground because it was a tough situation. And I really think like in 2016, he wasn't thinking like, maybe they won't like that. I think he was thinking, I'm going to just say exactly what I've been thinking for a long time. And that's what you do. And I really think people underestimate how popular it is because people love that.
I got to let you go, man. But one last thing about that. I think at some point, and I've heard this, I don't have any real proof, but at some point, Donald Trump started to listen to his daughter and her husband. And that's one of the reasons he made some bad decisions. Because the daughter seemed a little more liberal. She and her husband, Jared Kushner or something like that. Mm-hmm. Do you think that was possible?
I absolutely think that's possible. And I even heard Bill Gates had mentioned earlier that he kind of pitched this idea like before the COVID thing. If Trump did this universal flu vaccine, he'd get credit for it. And I don't want to overanalyze, but I do think Trump is one of these people who likes credit, and it hurt him when so many people turned against him because he was so popular his whole life. So I think that might have been the way to get to him. Like, you're going to be so popular. You're going to be Mr. Science. They'll love you. But this is a lesson for Trump or anyone else. The left really doesn't care. They're not operating in logic or reality. So you could pander to them all you want. I think about it like Lucy with the football from Charlie Brown. Republicans fall for it every time. They run to kick the football. Lucy pulls it. They fall on their butt, and then they keep doing the same thing over. So you can't pander to the left because they'll just lie. They'll act like, oh, well, if Trump doesn't lock down hundreds, they'll blame him for all the deaths. Well, he did do it, and they still blamed him because they'll never stop. So it's like you got to just tell the truth. You got to be strong. The left will never credit you for any sort of compromise. I don't think they care at this point.
Well, the President Trump did say that on Facebook, that the owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, kept going to the White House and telling him how great he was.
Exactly. And that's how, I think that's how you get to him, like, you're awesome. And he's like, you think so? Like, and then Zuckerberg just pulled the football out right before the election. And, Trump, whoop, it's like the Charlie Brown episode. Yeah,
ended up banning Trump. Anyway, man, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. And it was amazing talk. Thanks for coming on.
It was great to talk to you, too. Thanks. Keep doing what you're doing, and God bless, Jesse.
You too, buddy. You matured amazingly. I had no idea how much you had matured.
Thank you. I do what I can. I'm getting older, so hopefully I don't get dumber and weaker.
No, you're getting smarter and stronger, and that's the way to go.
It.
Thank you, buddy.
Jesse.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. Appreciate it. Amazing.